You may recall if you were here about 1.5 years ago that I was visiting my mum over Christmas and I like travelled up to the nightmare that is our attic in order to bring down a pile of my children's books. So mainly sort of chapter books that I read when I was a child or like in my pre-teens. And tried to whittle down what I actually wanted to keep for nostalgia or my future children, and then those that I wanted to just get rid of and pass on, donate to a charity shop. But something I didn't do then was bring down all of my children's sort of picture books, so much younger books I had as a child. Now, I was always a reader, so I have a lot of books, and also apparently I'm a hoarder, so I've never gotten rid of any of those books. And I was rooting around in the attic actually looking for something completely different and realised all those books were just sort of like crammed in a corner. There's no organisation up there and it made me a little bit sad. So I wanted to bring down all those picture books and decide whether to keep them or not. I think I'm going to keep most of them because they do like bring sort of warm feelings to my heart, and also find somewhere to put them. I might have to do a bit of bookshelf reorganisation in the spare bedroom, which is where my mum very kindly lets me keep all my books. But since I was going back on that sort of nostalgic journey, I thought maybe you guys would like to join me, since you seem to enjoy the video where I talked about the sort of chapter books I read as a child. You might enjoy learning about the sort of picture books I enjoyed as a child, and we can be nostalgic together. You might have read some of these as well, so it might be quite good fun. I really should have thought about this beforehand. I'm not even sure if I can pick most of these up. This is some of what was down there. Great, there's some other ones as well, so there's quite a fair few here, and there's definitely some themes about what I liked, and you can see sort of coming up time and time again throughout these books. And I'm also thinking there might be some in here that I've sort of forgotten and it's going to give me some flashbacks, so yeah, let's have a look at the books. The biggest book I actually brought down from the attic was this one, the classic, The Giant Book of Snakes and Slithering Creatures. I definitely had more books like this. I think I had an even bigger book that was sort of like big and cardboard that was all about reptiles and snakes and frogs and stuff, because one, I loved me an animal book, but in particular I loved me a book about sort of reptiles or insects and all things sort of creepy crawly. That's just the kind of child I was. I kind of loved bugs and lizards and all of that stuff. I wanted one as a pet so badly, but my parents were not here for it, and this is just like an excellent big book about different, I guess, habitats and types of creatures. There's some worms. Hope you're enjoying this. Some slugs, and I love these. I loved animal facts. I loved learning about animals. When I was a kid, my like youngest career aspiration was to be a zookeeper. Going to the zoo was my favourite thing to do every summer with my dad. And then I remember on multiple holidays we would visit sort of like aquariums and reptile centres. The Isle of Skye will ever be ingrained in my mind as the place that hosts the best reptile centre, because I went there more than once as a child. So this is brilliant. In fact, apparently there was another book in the series called The Giant Book of Bugs and Creepy Crawlies. How come I never got that one? I have a funny feeling this was from one of those sort of like reduced bookshops like The Works. I used to get a lot of my kids' books out of there, and they were quite good for these sort of animal fact books. But I'm going to keep this because you never know when that might come in handy, to be honest. This I also remember very vividly because it was terrifying, and it's the Oxfam book of children's stories, South, North, East and West, edited by Michael Rosen. So these are sort of folk tales, fairy tales, stories from lots of different countries and cultures that have been compiled by Michael Rosen, who was one of my idols as a child. Like, I loved his poetry, I loved his fiction, I loved everything that he was doing, and this is absolutely beautiful but also terrifying. Some of the stories in here were so scary. Let me find you some of these images that are ingrained in my mind that I will never forget, that I had nightmares about since a young age. So I thought you should see them too. Look at that. That's terrifying. What is even that story? It's called Story Time, and it's from England, so it tells you where they're all from. This is one I also remember being quite creepy, called The Daughter from Vietnam. But each one has quite a different sort of illustration style to go alongside it. This is one called The Lion and the Hare, illustrated by James Marsh, and that's from Botswana. Oh, I remember this one, Ears, Eyes, Legs and Arms, illustrated by Louise Brierley, and that's from Mali. Now, not all of the images or stories in this are super creepy, but I just really remember the kind of creepy ones staying with me, and that's not because I didn't like them. I loved them. Sometimes my mum would read me this book. We would sit in the garden in the sort of summer evenings when it was getting a little bit dark, and she would read it to me, and I loved it. It really freaked me out, but I have such fond memories. I actually think I would like to reread this because folk tales and fairy tales and stories from different cultures are still something I really enjoy, so it might be nice to revisit these as an adult. I probably can't spend as much time on every single book here, but who remembers Princess Smartypants? I have a few books by Babette Koch. I think she's quite well known as an early sort of feminist picture book writer, and I loved Princess Smartypants. It's about a princess who doesn't want to marry a prince and she just wants to hang out with monsters, and she is pretty awesome, and all these princes come to court her and she's like, no thanks, I'll pass. And it was just brilliant. I think this is like quite a cult classic. Obviously a lot of my picture books are super beat up. A lot of them my parents bought for me second hand in the first place, and then I enjoyed my books as a child, so I didn't necessarily keep them pristine. They got thrown around, they travelled with me, they got read and reread, and then they got stuffed in an attic for years. So this is the condition that they have survived in. In fact, I think I saw another Babette Koch, yeah, this one, The Smelly Book, if you want an example of a book in terrible condition. But this was one that I just read all the time and I loved so much. It's just a book about smelly things, because children love that kind of stuff, don't they? Look. I think I would do a bunk if I saw a smelly skunk. Fair enough. Fair enough. This one I don't remember quite so well, but it's A Child's Garden of Verses by Robert Louis Stevenson, who is a sort of classic Scottish author, and these are obviously just poems for children by him. And I did love children's poetry as a child. Like, I loved reading poetry by myself, with my mum, with my friends. We would read it out loud to each other. I loved sort of nonsense verses and all of that like good stuff, so I can imagine I probably got through this. It just doesn't spark a vivid memory in comparison to some of these. In fact, this was my favourite book of poetry as a child. Oh, it was brilliant. It's Michael Rosen's Book of Nonsense. I might even argue that this is the best children's book ever written, to be honest. This was so amusing. In fact, let me read a poem to you. This is Rosie Rosie. The dog told the cat told the queen. Rosie Rosie's birthday cake stuck in the washing machine. It splashed it, it washed it, and Dad had a fit. Rosie Rosie's whipped it out and eaten every bit. Genuinely, this brings me so much joy. Oh, I'm definitely going to have to reread all of these. Well, this is one I've actually talked about with adult friends now who also read this as a kid, and it's the Jolly Pocket Postman by Jeannette and Allan. Ahlberg, and this is one of those lovely books that has sort of inserts, so some of these envelopes have letters in them. Like this one has a little card in it that's like based on the Wizard of Oz. Again, here this one has a tiny little book inside it that you can then read, and oh, these books with all the sort of hidden layers just completely captured my imagination as a kid, and I think the Jolly Pocket Postman was quite a popular one in that sort of sub-genre, shall we say. We then have Angus and the Ducks by Marjorie Flack, which is about Angus who meets some ducks. Angus is a dog. This was a hand-me-down, I remember, from my mum's friends' kids who were older than me, and I got quite a few of their picture books, so this one's even older. It does look quite old, doesn't it? This is another one of my absolute favourites. I am having major flashbacks from some of these books, and it's Cops and Robbers by Jeannette and Allan Ahlberg. Again, our same friends that did the Jolly Pocket Postman. I loved their books. I think they were quite popular in general. I know the skeleton one, what's it called? Funny Bones, about the skeleton dad and his son, I think, was quite popular as well. And I read that one, I think, in school or at nursery, but I never had a copy. However, Cops and Robbers, I adored. Look at those illustrations, they're so beautiful. Oh, some of the pages are falling out. This is why I need to find them a nice home where they can sort of be preserved. I love the detail as well in these illustrations. This is a police station. Here are the cops of London town, hardworking, brave and true. They drink their tea, stay up till 3 and take good care of you. Oh, love it. I don't know if anyone else read this one, but I remember rereading this quite a lot. It's called Stone Soup by Tony Ross, and it's about this chicken that tricks this wolf into not eating her by convincing him that stone soup is much tastier. I don't know how I remember all these, they're like flooding back to me. Returning to the topic we opened this video with, and some of these really need a dust, let me tell you. I have Amazing Spiders, Eyewitness Junior's books. So this is actually from DK, who are publishing my children's book in the summer, and that's kind of amazing, but I used to love their Eyewitness books when I was a kid, the non-fiction, and I learned so much from them, including this book about spiders. I love spiders. I think spiders have a really bad rep and it makes me very sad, and I've loved them since a very young age. I mean, I'm really sorry if you don't like spiders and I'm showing you this, but genuinely, like the title says, they're amazing. I remember doing a school project on spiders and using this book. We then have a classic fairy tale, The Three Billy Goats Gruff. One you'll definitely recognise if you grew up in Scotland is Maisie. This is Maisie Digs for the Past, which is possibly the most perfect one for me because Maisie goes on a wee archaeological trip. But Maisie is this cat who lived in Morningside, which is an area of Edinburgh. It's quite a posh area of Edinburgh. And she goes on all these adventures, so if you grew up in Scotland, she was quite like well known and popular. And I think this might be the only Maisie book I ever owned, but I definitely read other ones by her. I'm also remembering I definitely had a book when I was a kid about Katie Morag, whilst we're on the topic of like classic Scottish children's picture books, but I don't think I saw the Katie Morag book in this pile, so I don't know what happened to that. That's quite sad. Oh, we've got another Babette Cole, we've got King Change-A-Lot. I don't remember this one quite as well, but I think it's about like a baby king. I mean, these illustrations are just so weird and wacky and I love them. That one's kind of falling apart as well. Oh, this one. This one me and my mum loved is The Queen's Knickers by Nicholas Allan, and it's about a group of school children or nursery children who are about to have a visit from the Queen, and they're debating what kind of underwear they think she wears. Like, it's so silly. And then there's just all these like illustrations of different knickers like that. It's so cute and so beautifully drawn. My mum is very arty, so she was very into like the illustrations behind picture books and picked a lot of my picture books based on the fact that she liked illustrations. I remember this one as well. It's called Maybe It's a Tiger, and it's about this tiny little boy and he lives in the city, and it's about all of the sort of things he sees going on in the city and imagining if they sort of lived in the jungle and like what the animals would be. So he's like playing with like the cats and dogs here, and he's imagining bears and tigers, and it's just so cute. Oh, I love this one. Wow, apparently it was £2.50 though, so we know it must be old. We then have some more children's poetry. This is the Oxford Treasury of children's poems. I do remember this one a little bit more than the Robert Louis Stevenson one. It's just illustrated poems again for children. Oh, an absolute classic. The Jemima Puddle Duck Treasury. This is, I think, the only Beatrix Potter book I ever had. I know some people were really into Peter Rabbit as a kid, but I think I only ever had Jemima Puddle Duck, and she was my favourite. I loved Jemima. Oh, what a lass. Oh, this one I absolutely loved. It was called The Wishing Tree. So this is in Bengali and English, and I don't know Bengali, but it has Bengali on one side and English on the other side. And it's about this tree, funnily enough, given the title. Let me see if I can find it. And all the animals are trying to like go and visit it. I think their homelands might be drying out and they've not got any food or water, so they want to get to this tree to wish on it for water or rain or food, and each animal says, I can do it, I can do it, and takes a turn at trying to get to the wishing tree, and it's not until the final animal can actually get there. But this is another one I'd actually quite like to reread, so I might have a flick through that. This was my nursery rhymes book. So this is The Little Dog Laughed and Other Nursery Rhymes. Pictures by Lucy Cousins. Again, like I said, my mum very much into illustrations, and she loved the illustrations in this one, and this was basically just my edition of all the classic British nursery rhymes, I guess they are, and she used to read this to me a lot when I was a kid. That's the 12 Days of Christmas there. You've got all the different days of Christmas, and I love this, except for the last poem, which was Wee Willie Winkie. This is what the book concludes on, with this creepy Wee Willie Winkie who goes running around the streets in his nightgown, spying on children through the window to make sure they're asleep, and this used to terrify me. What a way to close a book. What a way. Oh, another classic, Rupert the Bear. Who did not love Rupert the Bear? Rupert the Bear is a fashion icon. That's all I have to say. Like, genuinely, who does not want that sense of style? On the topic of famous bears, we have my copy of Winnie the Pooh. This is Stories of Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne, and it's got some nice illustrations in there as well. This was another favourite of my mum's. My mum still loves Winnie the Pooh, and she used to read this one with me. I think this is quite dirty. I might need to give this a wipe down. Again, I feel like I'm taking ages about all this, but I remember all these books and it's crazy to me. This is The Tiger Who Lost His Stripes by Anthony Paul. Totally remember this. Never had The Tiger, Game to Tea, but The Tiger Who Lost His Stripes. Classic. This one I remember super well. This is Come Sit By Me. This was published by the Women's Press, and this is about a little girl whose mum, I think, has HIV, is HIV positive, and she goes to nursery, and it's about all her classmates learning about HIV and how it's transmitted, and like accepting her into their friendship groups and like making her feel welcome, and it's sort of educational in that sense. And oh wow, okay, this does not surprise me. Apparently I thought I should cut this book. Oh, I loved me a pair of scissors as a child. Let's not judge child Jean. She loved this book and she used to reread it all the time. So much so that apparently she just decided to cut it up one day. Oh, another one I absolutely loved was Come Home Soon, Baba. It's about this little boy whose dad goes to work and he just wants his dad to come home, and it's about all the things they sort of do during the day whilst they're waiting for his dad to come home. So they're collecting building materials and making bricks to build a new room onto their house in the village whilst his Baba is away, and it's just lovely and it's so beautifully illustrated. This is another one of those kind of books that has like little letters and things inside it, like the Jolly Pocket Postman. I don't remember this one as well. I think it's a detective storyline though, the Mailbox Mice Mystery. Who stole the cheese? I don't know, I suppose I'll have to read to find out. I'm running out of things to say here, but I have The Yellow House by Blake Morrison and Helen Craig. Gorgeous inside as well. Ooh, this is one of those books that was like a puzzle book. I wonder if I could do this now. This might be quite fun given I don't have anything else to do. A Puzzling Day at Castle Macpelican by Schuyler Anderson, and this has got sort of puzzles on each page, so a bit like Where's Wally, you might have to find things or you might have to find a route through things, count things potentially, different puzzles on each page basically, and there's always tons going on so that it's a little bit difficult to make things out and you have to spend a little time poring over them. I used to love these kind of books. I don't remember owning any more of them, but my library used to have a lot of these kind of books. I used to love taking them out and doing them, returning them, forgetting about them, doing them again. They were just such fun. Yeah, I might try this again. We then have a little Harry McClary book by who was another little series. This is Harry McClary's Scatter Cat. So Harry McClary was this little dog, and this is also a book in which he hangs out with a cat. I don't really remember the storyline about it. Harry McClary felt bumptious and bustly, bossy and bouncy and frisky and hustly. He wanted to run, he wanted to race, but the main thing he wanted was something to chase. I'm not sure he makes friends with the cat after reading that. Little Grey Rabbit to the Rescue. To be honest, don't remember that at all. Poppy's Babies by Jill Barklam. I remember this, not the story. I'm assuming it's about a mouse giving birth, but I used to love the illustrations in this because they're so detailed. I mean, they're stunning, but also there's definitely a spread where it's like inside this big house that they live in, and you get to see all the different layers, and they reminded me sort of Sylvanian families. I have to find this now that I've said it out loud. That's it. So it was like these little snapshots of the inside of their little tree houses. I thought those were so pretty. We then have two books my mum hated, and these are The Secret Fairy Party Book and The Secret Fairy Boutique. My mum hated these because she said they weren't books. I mean, now she admits that she was probably kicking up a fuss for no reason, but in lots of ways they're again books where you draw things out. This has a little set of wings that you could wear. There was stickers in them that I've obviously used. I think maybe some of them had like little hair clips and stuff like that, so in a way they kind of were toys. I will give her that. But there was words as well, and I love these because oh my god, there's still some stickers in this one. These are those kind of stick-on gems that you'd like put on your ear when you didn't have your ears pierced to wear as earrings. But I loved fairies as a kid. I used to dress up as a fairy on a regular basis and run around the house with my wings on and pretend to be a fairy, like children do. So those were big winners with me. We then have Welcome to Mouseville. Don't really remember this. More poetry. We've got 10 Banana More, an anthology of poems for children by 10 of the best poets writing today. I wonder who they considered 10 of the best poets. Adrian Mitchell, Libby Houston, Roger McGow, Grace Nichols, Brian Patton, James Berry, Philip Gross, Matthew Sweeney, Helen Dunmore and Jackie Kay. I only think I've read Helen Dunmore and Jackie Kay as an adult, but that's so interesting. And there's some lovely illustrations in here as well. Some tiny little books, including Harry the Dirty Dog, I remember this one, and Jenny's Bear. Then lastly I've got this, which I feel like I got when I was a little bit older. When did this book come out? It came out in 2003, so I would have been 11, so yeah, a little bit older than a lot of these books, and that's King of the Midden, Manky Mingin Rhymes in Scots. So this is from Itchy Coo, who I think I've talked about before. They publish their own books in Scots and also translate some classics into Scots, so you can buy Harry Potter in Scots from them, for example, and these are poems again, but in Scots. Alien. The man fae Mars was in the kitchen eating shredded wheat. What I forgot to tell you was his een were on his feet. Syne he started on the kale, the barley on the mutton. My mother squeaked, look at his moo, it's on his belly button. That's by Lydia Robb. I'll let you see this alien they've been describing. This is him here. But those are all the books I found up the attic. I have a suspicion there might be a few more. Like I mentioned, I remember having a Katie Morag book. There's so many piles of things from old schoolwork to uni work to toys to Christmas decorations that it takes a bit of like rummaging through. So I'm pleased that I brought these down at least, because I can hopefully like dust them off, put them on one of these bookcases, keep them a little bit safer, and hopefully preserve them for a future generation, potentially my own children, because a lot of these were absolutely wonderful and I loved reading them as a kid. They're just so imaginative and witty and beautifully illustrated. So I feel so lucky to have had them as a child. Reading is such a gift and these just give me all the nostalgic feels. So hopefully you've still enjoyed this video, even though it's mainly just been me gushing about some of my childhood reads. I would love to know if you recognise any of these books or authors, because some of them are pretty random and I know I haven't spoken to other people who read them before, but I'd also love to hear what some of your favourite picture books were as a child, or even favourite picture books now. That would be so nice to hear. Let's just be like a little bit childlike and nostalgic in the comments, and until next time, happy reading. I'll see you again soon. Bye guys!